I haven't done the International Space Station tour VR quite yet, or yet at all. No, no, quite yet. Let's check it out. So that's like real live actual footage then. Some interaction stuff.
There's a few things that you can find everywhere on the space station. Velcro for one thing, or bungees, or grating, or seat racks. They're installed everywhere on all of our racks, and they allow us to attach things that are useful for us to live and work up here. For one thing, handrails. Handrails are everywhere, and we use them, of course, to hang on to, or a lot of times to put our feet under, so we have our hands free to work.
Handrails to hang on to.
There are different types of interface with the seat rack. This is actually my favorite one, because it's really easy. You just have to press on this side, and it pops out and it engages. So to attach it, we push this back in, both sides, of course, and then we align it, and engage it. And it's ready to go.
Nice.
So now I can, for example, slide my feet under, and they're nice and secure, and I can work with my hands. Or, some people find it more comfortable to use foot restraints like this one. You attach it. It's really simple to the handle, and then again, you can slide your feet in. Ideally, I would have a second one, and then I can work with my hands. Or, there's many other things you can attach. On a handbrake, for example, a bracket, like this one. It attaches very easily and quickly. And for example, on a bracket, I can put a camera. And I can take a picture of it.
No, you're taking a picture of the camera.
All the modules of the space station can be isolated from one another with hatches like this one. This is a standard hatch for the non-Russian side of the space station. And I want to show you how it works. First of all, our hatches have a pressure equalization valve. As the name implies, it equalizes pressure across the hatch. When the hatch is open, we keep that valve closed. And the reason is that if we ever need to close this hatch, it's usually because we want to isolate the two sides, and it might be in an emergency, we might have to do that quickly, and so we keep that valve ready closed. But then if we want to reopen the hatch, then we have to reopen it, because in that case we do need to equalize the pressure across the hatch in order to open it. Then with this push button and handle, you can unlock it, and then the hatch is able to slide along its rails. And then eventually it will contact those sealing surfaces, which have those red sealing elements that provide the seal. Now I'm not going to close it completely. First of all, I would not want to be on this side. The rest of the station is on the other side, as well as the Soyuz, which is my rescue vehicle. Also, we really only want to close hatches when there is a reason to. But if I wanted to close it, of course, I would slide it down completely, and then with this handle, I would engage the latching mechanism. This is the IVA side of a hatch, the one that's towards the inside of a module. Now, to show you how the latching mechanism works, I'm going to slide down the hatch of the neighboring module and show you the EVA side of this hatch. Now, if Columbus wasn't here and this hatch was closed, of course this side would be outside, it would be in vacuum. And this is the latching mechanism. Of course, on this side as well, we have the handle, in case we had to close it from this side, and the pressure equalization valve. This is BioLab, the science right here in Columbus, which is dedicated to life sciences. It has a built-in microscope, a centrifuge with 2 rotors in here, over there 2 temperature-controlled units where we can keep samples at a controlled temperature, and here behind this cover, a glove box. Slide it out for you. Basically, a glove box allows you to put your hands inside this volume, but using gloves that are built in, and that way you can manipulate samples that could be dangerous and should not come in contact with the atmosphere of the station. And I worked quite a lot on BioLab during the Futura mission as part of the experiment Toolbox.
I gotta check out my desktop real quick. Fantastic.
This is Maris. Sometimes we call it the monster just because it's so big and it's actually pretty complicated to assemble. The purpose of Maris is to study muscles, and in particular muscle atrophy in space. And now it's of course all tucked away and sleeping in its rack. But during the Futura mission, I had the chance of actually assemble it and do some calibration work on it.
What's that little thing? I didn't even notice it before. Anything else on this side? Hi, my name is Paxi. I'm an explorer from another planet. I parked my spaceship in orbit and parachuted down to Earth to meet you. Thanks, Paxi. I completely shot like way on through because I was at the backside of where I just was. There's the doors open. I can't really tell from there. That doesn't look familiar. Nor that portion on the floor. Fantastic. This is pretty sweet. I really like this. Exploring the International Space Station. Oh shoot, I didn't want to go there. Where am I at? Is that no 2? No. No 2? Yeah. So, I guess I did come through there, and right now it's all sealed off with packages, huh? Alright. Good deal. Oh wait. Columbus.
If you have ever wondered how crew members of the space station always know where they are above the Earth, well, it's not because we are also good at geography, at least I am not, but it's because we have World Map, which is a really cool software that runs on all of our station support computers, SSCs. We have about 20 of them spread throughout the space station. And it tells you just that, where you are. So see, you can see it has a map of the world, and the continuous pink line is the current orbit we are on, or the ground track of the current orbit we are on. And then the next 2 orbits are those 2 pink dotted lines. So here you can see, and then of course there is a drawing of the space station itself. So you can see that we left South America, we're over the Atlantic right now, and very soon we will be over Europe. You can also make, with world map, very precise path predictions. You can ask the software to tell you when in the coming days you will pass over a specific site. So let's see, I'm gonna pick a place in northern Italy, that's where I'm from, and I want to know when I will pass over northern Italy. You see, it's in about 10 minutes, and the pass will last for about 10 minutes. It's almost a zenith pass. It's 82 degrees elevation, so we will almost be from Earth, we will be visible almost zenith in the sky. And I say that we will be visible because world map also tells you where the terminator is, where is the line between day and night. And so you can tell that it's right about there over northern Italy. It means that when we will get there, on the ground it will be night. The sun will have set already. But up here on the space station, for about 10 more minutes, we will be illuminated by the sun. We will be bright. And so on the ground it will be night. You will be easily able to see us, a bright object moving in the sky. For us, of course, those passes are not good to take pictures because we are illuminated by the sun. On the ground it's dark. We only see black. We don't see anything. What world map can do also is to show you a view of how things will look from your window. You can select, for example, let's say the view out of the window, and let's select the cupola, which is typically where we take pictures from. And this is how things will look from the cupola, from the forward window and the zenith window. Of course, now it's kind of boring because we're over the Atlantic, so you only see water everywhere. It even shows you where our Soyuz is.
Cool.
This is an MWA, a maintenance work area. We have two of those. There is this one on the starboard wall of Node 2, and then there is one on the opposite wall over there. We use MWAs typically to do complex science or maintenance work where it's lengthy, it's complex. We want a nice work environment. We want to be able to secure this equipment. We want nothing to be floating away. This is the stowed position of the MWA. It's tucked against the wall, so it's out of the way. If we have to work on it, probably we want to deploy it to raise it up to a more comfortable angle. You could secure it, for example, here. Most likely you would want to bring it up a little bit, so it's more like a table. And then let's say I have a piece of equipment I want to work on and I want to secure it here. One option is bungees. So I would first of all attach rings like this one where I find them handy, for example here, and then a second one over there, for example, and then a bungee between the two. And then I could secure, for example, this if I had to do some work on it. We also use this general area to keep stuff that we use all the time. We want it handy. We don't want to have it to put it away all the time. For example, Sharpies, stopwatch, flashlights, Leatherman tool, clips, Velcro tags. Velcro is very important when stuff floats. So if you find something that doesn't have Velcro, you can quickly put a Velcro tab on it, and then it's easy to attach to a wall or the ceiling or the floor. Brake coat. We also keep a couple of tools actually, like this one with a 5/32 socket, and that's because we use them all the time. This is the type of socket that is used to remove the fasteners that secures the front panels of our racks, and that's because a lot of time there is stowage behind the front panels, and so we need to access the volume behind, or occasionally because we have to do some work on the equipment that's back there. When you're done, of course, you want to restow it so that it's not in your way or in the way of your crewmates.
Well, looks like you have a couple fish traps already installed for staying secure and working.
In this corner of Note 2, I can show you some of the emergency equipment we have up here on the space station. This is an emergency locker. In the non-Russian modules of the space station, typically there are 2 of them in each module. The Russian segment is organized a little bit differently. And if we open the locker, first we find an oxygen mask. We call them PBAs, portable breathing apparatus. And if I had to wear a mask, of course I would turn on the oxygen supply from the bottle and then squeeze in those 2 red tabs. If there was oxygen supply, those straps would inflate and rigidize, and it would be very quick and easy to don the mask. We would wear a PBA in case of fire, of course, in case of smoke. If the ammonia alarm went off, if we suspected presence of ammonia in the cabin. A supply from the bottle lasts for about 7 minutes. If we had to work on a PBA for a longer time, we could consider using a hose, so connecting it to with this hose, which is pretty long, connecting it to the oxygen ports. There's a number of them throughout the station, and then we are free to move around because the hose is very long, and we are connected to a virtually infinite supply of oxygen. Another reason why we would wear a PBA, put on a PBA, is if we had to discharge a fire extinguisher. And that's because our fire extinguishers, at least in the non-Russian modules, are based on CO2. So they basically discharge CO2, and the idea is that they will displace the oxygen and kill the fire. And you can discharge a fire extinguisher in the open cabin if the fire is in the open cabin. However, if it's behind a panel, you might need, or you certainly will need, an extension like this one, because you would have to discharge through a fire port like this one. And the idea is that each fire port allows you to discharge the CO2 into a fire partition, and theoretically the fire should be contained in this volume and not be spread beyond this one fire partition. Another piece of equipment that we would pay attention to during an emergency is this. It's an intermodule ventilation valve. If an alarm goes off on the space station, be it fire or depressurization or ammonia leak, in most cases the auto response of the vehicle of the space station will close all the IMV valves, or the intermodule ventilation valves throughout the station. But as crew member, of course, we need to verify that they're really closed. For example, let's say that we found a leak here in the JAM, in the Japanese laboratory. Of course, we would want to isolate the module, so we would close the hatch, but we would also have to make sure that the IMV is really closed. Otherwise, there would still be exchange, the Note 2 and the JAM would still be connected, not isolated, and we would still be feeding the leak in the JAM with the air from the rest of the space station, which of course we don't want.
Yep. Awesome. Awesome sauce. So I started out in Destiny, right? I'm gonna shoot it and head back to find out, to make sure. And no, I did not. So Note 2, I started out in Columbus. Yeah. Yep, started out in Columbus. So, I guess I'll just go across from it to the ISS Kibo.
This is an ATU, an audio terminal unit, one of 2 here in the JAM. Most of the modules on the non-Russian part of the space station have 2 of these communication panels. There is a handheld mic attached into it that has a pretty long cable, as you can see, so that it can reach a at least halfway through a module. And then, as I said, typically there is another ATU on the other side of the module. Let's say that I want to talk to the ground. First of all, I need to know what space-to-ground channels I can use. We have a total of 4 space-to-ground channels, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So by pressing 1, 2, 3, and 4, I can pull them up. Right now I'm listening to all of them, and I'm actually talking on the one that is the last that I pulled up, in this case 4. However, not necessarily is space-to-ground 4 available. So right now, if I check here on the voice comm status of one of our PCS computers, the telemetry and commanding computers of the space station, I see that space-to-ground 4 is actually not available, along with space-to-ground 3. I do have, however, space-to-ground 1 and space-to-ground 2. 1 and 2 rely on our S-band antenna, which has typically a little bit more coverage throughout the day, and 3 and 4 rely on our KU antenna, and we have more often throughout the day loss of signal on the KU antenna. The KU antenna is necessary not only for communication on 3 and 4, but also to downlink live video, for the video conferencing system, for the IP phone, and even for our very slow access to the internet. So, as I said, at this moment, space-to-ground 1 and 2 are available. So on the ATU, I would select, for example, 2. I would typically not select 1 because 1 is usually used by our Russian colleagues to communicate with the Moscow Control Center. So we usually hang up 1 like this, and we do not listen to it. Typically, we listen to 2, 3, not 4, so I'm going to hang it up, and 5. So 5 is not a space-to-ground channel, it's our intercom. So if I speak on 5, all the other ATUs that have 5 pulled up on the station will transmit my communication. However, it will not go to the ground. We typically do not pull up 4 on most ATUs because it's usually used for private conferences. So we really only pull it up when we're using it, for example, to talk to our flight surgeon or to our family.
Oh.
This is the GEM airlock, the airlock in the Japanese laboratory, and it's used to move stuff from inside the space station to outside the space station. Most of the time it's small satellites that are grabbed by the Japanese robotic arm and deployed into their orbit. Sometimes it's experiments that need to be installed outside the station and then maybe in the future even brought back in and downloaded back to Earth. So how does it work? Let's say that I need to move something outside. So what I would do is, first of all, open this hatch. And then there is a slide table inside that slides out into the volume. So I would come here to this control panel, and from here I would be able to command the slide table to move into the actual GEM cabin. Then I would have to install whatever it is that I need to move outside, for example, a small satellite, onto the slide table, and there are provisions to do that, dedicated interfaces. Then I would come back here, slide the table into the airlock, and close the hatch. And at that point, with a combination of commands from this panel and these rotary switches that command a number of valves, I would be able to depressurize the airlock, so completely remove all the air that is inside, make vacuum. Most of the air we are able to recuperate into the cabin with a pump to pump it back in. Some of the air, unfortunately, we do lose into outer space whenever we do a task, an operation like this one. Then I would come back here and open the outer hatch. And once the outer hatch is open, slide the table outside. And then from the ground, typically, they would command the robotic arm to come and grab this satellite, for example, for the deployment. Once that is done, the opposite thing. Slide the table back in, close the outer hatch, repressurize the airlock, and it's ready to go for the next operation.
We have 2 windows. They help, of course, in the operations, but also for us, it's extremely nice to have a view to the outside of our Earth. Come and have a look to their external platform and how beautiful it is outside.
That's pretty cool. That place is huge.
And from the other window, we can really have a magnificent view of our real beautiful planet. enjoy together with me.
This one.
This is a ventilation return grid here in the gem, and it's part of the inter-module ventilation system. See, throughout the station behind panels, there are many ventilation ducts and many fans that keep the air moving all the time. On the one side, we have the inter-module ventilation system that allows air to be pushed from one module to the other throughout the station. And that's important because, for example, we need to make sure that all of the air eventually makes it back to the carbon dioxide removal assemblies, or that the oxygen that's introduced into the space station, for example, by the oxygen generation system in Node 3, is spread around uniformly throughout the stack. The intermodule ventilation system, on the other hand, mixes around the air inside each module. And the reason, again, is to keep a uniform composition in every corner of the cabin, not allowing, for example, pockets of CO2 to build, and also to make sure that the air is eventually pushed through the air conditioning system to regulate the temperature and to get rid of excess humidity. On this particular return grid, you can see these two sensors which measure the airflow velocity, and this unit they're connected to transmits it wirelessly to a base unit. The airflow velocity is a parameter we actually measure throughout the stack periodically on ventilation grids, and the reason is that it gives a clue to whether, for example, filters are clogged or not, or fans are working properly or not.
Looks like all the signals are good for space to ground right now, so they're in a good location, but I'm not going to. I believe this is my only look. So back to Node 2, and now I guess it's on to Destiny.
This is one of two identical robotic workstations here on ISS. The other one is in the cupola. This is typically our backup workstation. From a robotic workstation, of course, you can fly the arm, which means that you can operate and control the SSRMS, the big robotic arm that is outside the station. We use it, for example, to capture visiting vehicles that bring us cargo, or to support extravehicular activities, or sometimes even to move a big thing like an entire module of the space station from one location to another. Recently, we used the arm to move PMM. Sometimes we fly it manually, especially for support of extravehicular activities or track and capture. And in this case, we use the hand controllers. This is the translational hand controller. So x-axis, y-axis, z-axis. And this is our rotational hand controller. Pitch, roll, and yaw. Of course, I can move the hand controllers and nothing happens right now because, as you can see here on the control page of the SSRMS, the arm is off. To give us situational awareness of what's going on outside, we have cameras, and we can route several cameras that are outside of the space station, mainly on the truss, to any one of these three monitors. Of course, now they're off. And to do camera routing, zooming in, zooming out, panning, tilting, we use this control panel. It also contains a lot of controls for the arm itself. For example, very important, the safing switch. If something is happening that is not supposed to, you can safe the arm and everything stops.
Cool. Cool.
This is SiSiPS, our cycloergometer.
Change clothes.
I'm sure it doesn't quite look like a bike to you yet, but I will show you that you can actually bike on it. I also want to show you first, though, that it's mounted on a movable frame that is attached to the space station via a isolating system, a dampening system, so that we impart as little as possible of the loads we generate on the bike into the structure of the ISS, and that way we protect the microgravity environment of the space station. So let's say I want to do a SiSiPS session now. The first thing would be to flip on the switch so that the SiSiPS computer has time to boot up while I get ready. I've done that already. And then I would move the actual bike, space bike, out of its storage position, here out of the way, into its working position. So just fold it out and lock it in place. I would put bike shoes on. I already have them for today, but they would be stored in this mesh bag. And then I can jump on the bike. I clip my shoes in. I can use the strap to help me stay in place, although you do also need to hold on with your hands. And then I rotate the SiSiPS control panel in a comfortable position for me. I select my protocol, and then I'm ready to bike.
Cool. Coolio. Looks like something with gloves. Microgravity Science Glove Box. The device allows astronauts on the International Space Station to perform a wide range of experiments in a fully sealed and controlled environment, completely isolated from the rest of the station.
Hello. This is our PWD, or Potable Water Dispenser. It's tied into the potable water bus of the station. You see a fluid quick disconnect here, and this is where the potable water comes in. And you can get out of it water at ambient temperature or hot water. And with this rotary switch, you can set the quantity of water that you need to be dispensed. Let's see how it works. Here I have dehydrated tomatoes and artichokes. So you open the pouch, and this is how they look when they are dehydrated. You see, the package actually tells you what the instructions are to prepare them. So in this case, it says add 100 milliliters of hot water and let it rest for about 5-10 minutes. So we're going to do that. I'm going to select, as I said, 100 milliliters on this rotary switch. I'm going to attach the package here at the rehydration station. I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to flip the switch to dispense. And then, of course, I want hot water. So I press the hot button. And there we go. The light goes out, so the dispensing is finished. I can take it off. Shake it, massage it a little bit, let it sit for 5-10 minutes, and it'll be ready to go. Of course, we also add water to our drink pouches. For example, this is some green tea with no sugar, and I usually add 175 milliliter of hot water. Here again, you want to shake it a little bit, and you add a straw. We have a straw package over there. You can quickly grab one. You open it. There you can drink your tea. And then you have to remember to reseal the straw once you're done to make sure that there is no tea floating out. That's it.
Cool. Missing anything, am I?
This sort of table is permanently deployed at this location here in the lab and is used as a restraint system in case we had to administer somebody's CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, and that of course would be a pretty bad medical emergency. It has a number of straps to restrain the patient. As you can imagine, in weightlessness you cannot just lie somebody on the floor, they will just float away, so you need to restrain them. I'm not going to deploy all the straps, but they're simple straps like this one. And I would like to show you how we can do CPR here in weightlessness. One option would be to try and use the standard position that you would use on the ground. And there are a number of restraints here that are actually meant for the helper if the helper chooses to use this technique. Another option here in weightlessness, I'm going to demonstrate it here on this bag, is to actually go upside down and push off the ceiling with your feet. And it actually works pretty well. It would be my favorite if I ever had to do it, hopefully not, right. But it would be something like this. Works pretty well. Nearby, we also have other emergency equipment. We have our AED. Is always ready to go with charged batteries. We periodically check that the batteries are still good and that it still works fine. And we also have the emergency medical treatment pack. It contains a number of life-saving items, from the intraosseous device starter kit that would be used to put an intraosseous device in your leg, and then with that we would be able to quickly inject some life-saving drugs that can help during CPR to restart the heart. And then in case the heart restarts and we need to help the patient breathe, there is a number of breathing support items that can be employed.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. A seat or something? Nope, only foot straps.
Can't quite read that in my
head-mounted display. It's crazy that bicycle can throw off the microgravity of the whole space station. It wasn't free floating. So I covered all the nodes so far for, oh my gosh, yeah, let's go to node 1. The living quarters. Someone getting into now.
This is the airlock, or actually one of 3 airlocks on the space station. There is an airlock in the Russian segment used for Russian spacewalks or EVAs. And then there is a small airlock in the Japanese laboratory, which is only used for things, not for people. This is the airlock from which we do spacewalks or EVAs in the NASA suit, which is the EMU. You can see 2 EMUs here, which are ready on the donning station. This is where spacewalkers would put them on. This larger volume is called equipment lock, and all of the pre-EVA, post-EVA operations happen here. Also a lot of work leading up to an EVA, maintenance work on the suits, everything happens in this volume, the equipment lock. You see a smaller volume over there, that is the crew lock. And of course that can be separated from the equipment lock by its dedicated hatch. And that's what we would do on the day of a spacewalk, when everything's ready after about 6 hours of pre-EVA activities. The suits with the spacewalkers inside would be put in the crew lock, the hatch would be closed, and then only that smaller part over there would be depressurized. We would make vacuum. We would recuperate most of the air into the space station and vent the rest into space. And then when the crew lock is at vacuum, then the spacewalkers can open the hatch and go outside. Now, of course, the crew lock, when there are no EVAs going on, it's pretty much used as a storage compartment, as you can see. But of course, you know, in a time when there are EVAs going on, it would be pristine and completely empty. Now, when a crew member is outside and they're working at a work site, the waist tether can keep them safely attached to structure, but not very well secured in a fixed position so that they can work. They would just rotate around. And for that, we have what we called a BRT, a body restraint tether. It has jaws like that attach to a handrail, so like this. And now it's secured to a handrail. And then I can adjust the position, and then when I'm happy with the position, I can lock it. And it will keep me in place. And the reason, of course, is that the other side is attached to the suit, like this. On the other side of the mini workstation, there is a swing arm, and we typically have a PGT. It's a power tool that we would have a socket, and we would use it to drive fasteners, basically. So a lot of the maintenance work that's done outside is done using the PGT.
Pretty cool looking little tool.
Some of our meals up here are in rehydrated form. You have to add water before you can eat them. Others are pretty much ready to eat. You just need to warm them up. That's the case of thermostabilized pouches like this one. This is one of my favorite meals, a quinoa salad with mackerel and dried tomatoes. And all you need to do is to put this pouch in the food warmer. This is our food warmer. So you open it up, it has two sides. You pick a side, put it in, close it, and then you turn it on. It was already on in this case. This red light tells you that it's on, that it's actually warming. And then there is 4 green lights. The first one tells you that it's been warming for 10 minutes, 20, 30, 40. At 40 minutes, it will automatically turn itself off. It's pretty easy.
Yes, but where is your food hidden?
This is part of the emergency equipment of the space station, in particular for the case of a fire. These are called SiSiPS. We have 2 of them here, as you can see, and 2 more are down in the service module. And the purpose of the SiSiPS is to measure the concentration of combustion products in the atmosphere, in the air. So to turn it on, you press the button, and then eventually it will tell you to release. So I'll release it, and then you give it some time, and it will tell you the concentration of CO, HCN, and HCl. And we know some threshold values that will tell us that there is indeed a fire, and we need to wear masks to protect ourselves. So let's say that somebody smells something funny that smells a little bit like a burning odor. We would immediately go and grab a couple of SiSiPS to measure the concentration of the combustion products and see if there is really a fire or not really. Sometimes it's necessary to measure behind panels inside of rack volumes. And in this case, we attach the SiSiPS to this pump, like this. And then we turn on the pump. And the point, of course, is to draw air towards the SiSiPS. And then with this probe, we can stick the probe through fire ports that are everywhere throughout the station. For example, there is a fire port here. We can stick it through. And in this case, I would be able to measure whether there is a fire behind this panel. Let's say, for example, that in this general area, I smell something that that feels a little bit like a burning odor and I want to check, that's how I would do it.
Cool.
In this locker in Node 1 deck, we keep the ISS toolbox, the main toolbox. We have tools in other locations as well. There are spares in Node 2, Columbus has its own little toolbox, and there are many special purpose tools that are kept in many different bags in many different locations. However, in this toolbox, we keep our daily use tools, the one we use on a daily basis to do our science work or our maintenance work. The toolbox is organized in 5 drawers that can slide out like this and rotate. This is drawer number 1, which contains mainly combination wrenches. And I'm not going to show you all, but I want to show you drawer number 2, which is the one that we go into the most, and it's also the most colorful. It contains our torque wrenches, torque drivers, driver handles, ratchet wrenches, extensions, and many sockets. And as I said, it's color-coded. Everything which is blue is 1/4 drive.
Fantastic.
Everything that is green is 3/8 drive. Everything which is dark color, dark blue or dark green, is metric, and light colors are the English system. And I have to say, on the space station, we use mostly the English system, which took me a while to get used to. Sometimes I still get confused. And then, of course, we have 3 more drawers with stuff like pliers, common tip screwdrivers, inspection mirrors, and I guess in drawer number 5 we go a lot to get our static wrist tethers.
I thought I heard a there.
This is PMA1, the Pressurized Mating Adapter number 1. It was launched together with Node 1, and it is the transition element to the Russian part of the space station. Down there you can maybe catch a glimpse of FGB, which is the very first module of the space station that was launched. Today we used PMA a lot for stowage. We keep in here a lot of pantry items in their own dedicated bags or CTBs. For example, here you can see the disinfectant wipes pantry. Pantry means that those items are not tracked individually. This wipes bag doesn't have an individual barcode, and so I am free to come and grab any disinfectant wipes bag from the pantry when I need one. That of course doesn't mean that I am free to come and grab, for example, a clean washcloth every time I want one. There is an expected usage rate. For washcloths, for example, is 1 per week per crew member. Other pantry items include trash bags. There are different types. These small green ones are used for wet trash, mainly used food packages. And then we have our big trash bags that are used for dry trash. And for some reason they're called jettison stowage bags. I can assure you we do not jettison them. In fact, we keep good track of them. If I was to take a new one out, I would put a number on it, report it to the ground, so that they always know how many we have and they can plan for them to be disposed of when we have a vehicle available that can take them away.
It is strange to have a name of jettison, but they don't jettison them. You think they changed the name just to alleviate any of that.
That's pretty cool. I guess that's a shot of the ground there below me.
Some clouds above the ocean. I think I came from that way, right? Yeah. So that's the first node, huh? I want to go that way. Yep. This is pretty darn cool. Yep, there she is, looking out on camera.
What you see here is the Advanced Resistive Exercise Device, or ARED for friends. And when we work out on ARED, we do that about an hour and a half every day. It's kind of like weightlifting on Earth. The point, of course, is to stay strong, to counteract the loss of bone and muscle that otherwise would be unavoidable when we are in weightlessness for a long time, like we are. There's two ways of working out on ARED. You can use this long bar here, and it's attached to this arm, and you can lift it like that. And this way, we can do exercises like squats or deadlift. Or we can leave this big bar in its resting position and work instead with this short bar, which is attached to a cable that you can pull out like that. And with the short bar, we do a lot of exercises for our back, but also for our biceps, our triceps, and even for our abdominal muscles. I hope you like our little space gym.
That is pretty cool. That looks like the bar's not connected right now. Only connect it when they need it. I guess that's how you adjust tension, maybe, how much pressure, weight that you're lifting out.
Here in the Note 3 port end cone behind this bungee net, we keep a number of items that are used on the space station for water balance, which is a very important and very delicate matter. For one thing, we have CWC bags. They're bags like this one, and they are used to store water when this water is not in the system, in the water bus, in the pipes. This CWC, for example, contains condensate. That is water that has not been reprocessed yet into potable water. In the Russian segment, liquids are mainly contained in solid metal containers like this one, which are called EDV. That's also true for urine. The Russian toilet is not directly connected to the urine processing assembly, so urine is collected in EDVs like this one. In this case, we speak about EDVU for urine. Whenever a EDVU is full, we get it from the Russian segment, and we transfer the urine from the EDVU into the urine processing assembly so that it can also be reprocessed into potable water. And the way we do that is pretty simple. The urine is contained inside of this solid container, is actually contained in a soft membrane. So we need to create overpressure inside the solid container so that we can squeeze the urine out of this soft membrane. And then of course we will have a hose that connects the EDVU to the urine processing assembly. The way we create the overpressure is by connecting a compressor into this hole here. Now, of course, we cannot recycle urine 100%. There are some components of the urine that cannot be reused, recycled. And those we call brine, and they are collected into a tank like this one. It's massive. It's probably the heaviest object we handle inside of the space station. And right now, of course, there is a tank like this in the urine processing assembly. Whenever that one is full, it will come out, and this one will go in its place. We have two that we swap all the time. That means, of course, that we have to empty this tank as well when it's full. I've done this, for example, the last time a couple of days ago. I have transferred the brine from this big tank into a EDV. And in this case, of course, the EDV is marked brine only. And this, of course, is final waste. It will eventually have to be disposed of, for example, in a progress.
In progress. Oh, I almost went somewhere, didn't I?
This is the cupola. It's where we keep our main robotic workstation. It makes sense because we can see outside. But it's also every crew member's favorite place. And you'll see why. Let's take a look. Out there you can
Kinda
see
sort of
the
cool.
SSRMS, or the Canadarm2. It's a robotic arm. It's parked out there because the ground is doing a survey of the space station. Let's take a peek outside. Here you can see Africa coming up. We have just crossed the Atlantic Ocean, and out there is Africa. This is our Soyuz. It's gonna take us home in a few days. And down there you can see it's the starboard part of the station. Those tanks are high pressure oxygen and nitrogen tanks. And behind there, you can't quite see it, but there's the airlock where we do spacewalks from. Looking aft, again, here's our lovely Soyuz. It's docked to MRM-1, which is of course part of the Russian segment of the space station. We are looking at the entire Russian segment. The very furthest away module is the service module. Moving around. Say hello to planet Earth. Of course, there's the reason why we call it the blue planet. If you take a peek outside at a random time, chances are you're gonna see ocean. This is the PMM, or Permanent Multi-Purpose Module. We just moved it here actually a couple of weeks ago. It used to be on the nadir position in Node 1, and now it's here, Node 3 forward. And it's mainly used, as you can probably guess, to stow stuff. It probably looks a little bit messy to you, but it's not really. I mean, it's obviously very full, and sometimes it's a challenge to reach storage locations. You have to move a lot of stuff out of the way, but it's pretty well organized. Our inventory system records the location of everything. Our storage specialists on the ground are always able to direct us to the right place to find whatever we are looking for. Also, it's not my case, but some crew members like to take their shower in here. For me, it tends to be a little bit too cold for that. But for those who do shower in here, we have set up a curtain. In fact, Butch Wilmore, my Expedition 42 crewmate, he came up with this idea of setting up this curtain that can give you a little bit of privacy.
And I think I'm in the end of this. I have to go back to Node 1, right? Yeah. Fantastic. All right. And that's back to Destiny. Node 3 is where I need to go, correct? Wait, I was in Node 3.
This is PMA.
Or was I? Did I hit it all? Yeah, thought so. I guess that's it. I don't think I can go any further. Oh, wait, yeah, I can. Just the feet and not the play video, right? Good deal. So now we're in what she said is the first node of the International Space Station. No videos in here to watch? This is too cool, man. Yuri Gagarin, a Russian-Soviet pilot and cosmonaut, the first human to journey into outer space, when his Vostok spacecraft completed an orbit of the Earth on 12th of April, 1961. Sergei Korolev, responsible for the first human spaceflight. His achievements, Sputnik, Vostok, Soyuz, an icon of Russian rocketry. Both his rocket and spaceship designs are still flying today. Of course, you can't hit the trigger to close out through those.
Now, for half a year, there is a European visitor, which is the automated transfer vehicle. And this is connected on the back side of the space station. So this is the ATV number 3, and it brings a lot of cargo, but also water, for example, air, oxygen that is pumped to the space station. So it provides the space station with a lot of consumables, cargo, air, water, but also fuel. Behind here is the engine part. So this is pressurized, and behind this wall is the unpressurized section of ATV. And there, for example, we have the fuel tanks, because the fuel, which is also part of the transporter, but the fuel is used for boosting. So we have Progress, the Russian cargo ship, for fueling the engines of the space station and for boosting. But ATV has a great position to put the space station in a higher orbit, because we lose a bit of altitude every time. So here we are stowing it now with things we don't need anymore, be it foam, be it trash, and be it old pieces of equipment. And when it's full, after half a year, it disappears.
The cleaning wipes, I'm guessing.
They padded up these bars to make them a bit more comfortable. It looks like good old duct tape and bubble wrap.
That's what it looks like. Another food warmer. And it looks like we've went ahead and completed the journey of the International Space Station. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did. This was pretty awesome. If you have a VR system that you can hook up, this is free on Steam, this program that we enjoyed today, and you can enjoy it yourself for your own head-mounted display. I do thank you for joining me, and remember to subscribe, like the videos. Thank you for joining me aboard the International Space Station. Have a fantastic day, guys.